Welcome, everyone. We are this is September 9th. No, it's not September 9th.
It's
My
not.
agenda says it's September 9th. We don't want to go back to that week. It is September 23rd, and we are here for a work session. It's just now 5:01. Work sessions. My name is Commissioner Sullivan. I'm the chair. Commissioners' work sessions are an opportunity for board members to discuss issues informally with staff and invited guests. The board encourages members of the public to attend work sessions and to listen to the discussion, but there is generally no opportunity for public comment. Members of the board wishing to address the board are welcome to do so during the board's regularly scheduled meetings, which will follow this one. So let's begin now this work session with board communications. We have about 5 minutes for that. And who would like to go first? Okay, Commissioner Thompson.
Okay. Well, Commissioner Webb, you had your hand up. Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. I assume that by now you have all received invitations to the forestry tour this year, which is going to be a little bit. Oh, here's the county manager. The forestry tour this year is going to be quite different from the way it has ever been done in the past, because it's going to be virtual. And one of the things that I'm really impressed with is that OSU Extension has really geared up during this pandemic, and they have outfitted themselves with incredible video and audio equipment so that they can do all kinds of cool movies and videos for people. It's very cool. And so the tour this year is going to be, and it's still going to be about the same length that it usually is, but without the hour-long bus rides in between. So I would encourage everybody to come. They've really gone out of their way to make some terrific videos, and so it'll get you right out there into the woods where we all probably wish we could be, maybe not today, but maybe tomorrow or the next day. So absolutely RSVP and join us. It's really going to be it's going to be very cool.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Webb.
That's all I've got.
Oh, go ahead. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Thompson, you had your green mic on before.
I did. Well, so I don't know about anybody else, but I've been having compassion fatigue. I didn't know what to call it. And then I saw this offering, and I sent it out to the other commissioners, and then I sent a link to the county manager. It was an offering that came through the Health Partner Organization, Catherine Risher, who's just a really great resource. So I spent last Friday afternoon looking at compassion satisfaction, compassion fatigue, coping skills. I mean, something that mothers are often told is you can't give from an empty cup. Well, that's true for a lot of people. So it was a wonderful opportunity. And, you know, everybody's been stressed with COVID and wildfires and smoke and I think life. So I would just encourage everyone. It was good for me. Maybe it's good for you too. So that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit today. And we had the AOC District 7 meeting, which I was delighted to see a couple of other commissioners join in. That's our colleagues, that's our buddies, that's our partners along the other coastal communities. And that's always a good time and a fruitful set of relationships to cultivate. So that's all I wanted to talk about a little bit today.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. I'm sorry, we're Commissioner Webb, we'll get back to you, but we've got about 5 minutes, so we're going to go to the next. This is just a check-in. Commissioner Nebaker.
Hello, everyone. I'm just really glad that the smoke is cleared and the fires are getting more under control. And I know I've talked to several people who have been affected by the fires in one way or another. And also I've talked to several people who have gone to help. And it's trying times. And I too have been reading about how to become more resilient. And I've been watching some TED Talks about it. And I'm really glad that we have those things available to us. That's all I have.
Thank you. Is Commissioner Quila on the line yet? I think he may still be at work or leaving from work. So, all right. Well, I guess I will conclude the board communication part by saying that I got another letter from the Red Cross email, and just to remind folks that during the disruptions because of the wildfires and whatnot, they're not able to do the blood drives that they normally do. They still need that, as well as the work that they're doing to help the people affected by these disasters, along with the other community partners. So despite, and I agree with you, Commissioner Thompson, about compassion fatigue, but we still want to encourage people to keep supporting our partners that are helping us during this time. So, and I know that that's not what you were saying. I understand that you were saying that we have to take care of ourselves so we can take care of other people, and I totally agree with that. So we're at a 5-minute point, so let's go into to discuss the formal agenda. Does anyone have any of the commissioners have comments on the agenda? Do they want to make any changes to that? Okay, it sounds like then we'll be able to move ahead with the agenda during our regular meeting that starts at 6. So right now we can move into if Dr. McNichol is ready, if he's giving the public health update. The topics tonight are, we're going to have a public health update, which is minutes. We're going to have business ventures operating in a right-of-way, and then septic in Clatsop County. So let's go into the public health update. Dr. McNichol.
Hello there, can you hear me?
We can now, yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, great. Good evening, Commissioners. This is Mike McNichol, Director of Clatsop County Public Health. So it's been a very fast-moving week this week. Starting Friday, we went from 9 cases to 10 cases to more cases today. And as of right now, we have 132 positive cases. Actually, we're waiting for test results on 30 that we took on Monday and Wednesday. And there was another 157 taken at Pacific Seafood by their contractor, waiting for those results. And we actually have 4 outbreaks occurring all at once now, including Pacific Seafood. So it's been quite interesting. From that, we're also monitoring 40 to 50 people from contact tracing. Those are all the contacts to those cases. We can't quite get a firm number yet because they keep changing almost minute by minute. So somewhere between 40 and 50. And so staff is still working hard to get these cases as they come in. I do think that we're seeing the post-Labor Day uptick where people got very relaxed about mask wearing, social distancing, and mask gathering. It's been almost 14 days plus since that day, and that's about the incubation period for COVID. So we sort of anticipated this, but probably not as brisk as they've come in. We've seen it's not just the seafood processors. This is community spread that's getting into everywhere. So we are getting a surge that we've been worried about since the beginning of March. So we have had a lot of illnesses, but nobody's been admitted yet. So we're watching that carefully. I can take some questions, but I also wanted to update you on the issues with the deaths of overdoses over the weekend. We had 2 people die from overdoses, and we had at least, from the sheriff's report, probably at least 10, if not 12 other reported overdoses that were reversed. So the problem is it's pretty clear that people are still obviously using and using excessively. We have a report that a batch of heroin that came into Clatsop County had a lot of fentanyl in it, and fentanyl, as you know, is a very potent opioid that at very small doses can cause death. So we've seen that issue. When we did our harm reduction effort last Thursday, nearly everyone we spoke to at the harm reduction in Warrenton, Seaside, and Astoria either knew of or knew them personally who had been overdosed. And so there's a lot more interest now in getting naloxone and Narcan distributed. So we're going to double our efforts. We've had a lot of inquiries about how we can get that material out to folks, supplies and training. So it takes a really bad thing to get a lot of momentum. So I'm hoping that through that devastating losses, we can have a bright side and get a lot of people trained up and have naloxone handy in the case that they happen to see someone they know or even a stranger suffering from an overdose. Now I can take some questions if you wish.
Dr. McNichol, I wanted to thank you and your team for the work that you all have done over the last couple of years on the needle exchange and building up the network of community outreach that I'm sure has saved lives. I have two questions on two different topics. One, the medication that you're talking about that can reverse ODs, overdoses. If you could just talk briefly about that, and then also if you could go back to and kind of explain a little bit about what an outbreak is. That's such a scary term. It's from the movies, but in terms of public health, it's when it reaches a certain number. What is that? And so when we're talking about 5 outbreaks, could you talk a little bit about that? So those are my questions.
Okay, so I'll answer that with the outbreak question first. So how it works is that OHA, Oregon Health Authority, considers an outbreak of something with 5 or more cases. So it's simply a way to discern a small number of cases, like 2 or 3. If we call something an outbreak, then we get what was called an outbreak number. And when we have that number, that means we can actually send those samples to the public health lab in Hillsborough. And so that means we get a faster turnaround time. The advantage of having an outbreak declared means we have better service in our sampling and results. So merely it's a number. So anything more than 5 is an outbreak. So we've had 4 of those, which is, it's a lot, but it still accounts for most of those cases. So hopefully that explains outbreak. And then naloxone is a drug that if when someone is suffering from an opioid overdose, which is pretty dangerous, it causes shallow breathing and eventually no breathing. The naloxone, if introduced either injected, you can either inject it or you do a nasal an injection, so it's not injected, but it's a spray. And so those are the 2 routes that we have available, and mostly we use the nasal here, and we also have quite a bit of the injectable kind. So if someone is suffering from an overdose, you can give that medication to them, and it should reverse the effects of that opioid. Now, in some cases, if it's fentanyl or even stronger, it can take up to what we found is even 4 or 5 doses to actually get a reversal. And that's the scary part, is if you have to use up to 4 or 5 doses to get a reversal, they've taken a lot of opioids. So that's one of the issues, is that we have to make sure we have enough that, if one dose doesn't work, you better have some more on board just in case that isn't enough to actually solve the problem.
Thank you. It's a dangerous business, I know. Commissioner Webb?
Okay, sorry, having technical issues. I just completely screwed up my screen, so I hope I'm not.
That's all right, Commissioner Webb.
Can
We
you
can
hear
hear you. Go ahead and talk.
Okay. Dr. McNichol, do all of the sheriff's deputies and police officers carry naloxone?
Yes, I believe Sheriff Phillips has made sure that his staff carries naloxone. We've actually even worked with the jail staff so that they can carry naloxone. And we've also worked with all the city departments to make sure they have naloxone as well.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Nebaker?
Thank you. I have a few questions. So You had said that you were going to work on people getting trained. So you just mentioned a lot of people. Who else will that be? And then I have some other questions.
Yeah, so we've had some interest from other nonprofit groups who have shown interest, and also just the general public. So, we want to make sure that anybody who thinks that they want to have naloxone to be part of the of folks who be able to available just from being in our community. We've offered it basically to anybody. So anyone who wants to get trained, we can do that. We're offering it to community action, to anybody. So that's what we're trying to do. The Friends of the Unsheltered, the Astoria Warming Center, any place where there might be opportunity for a congregation where opioids might be an issue.
Thank you. That's good, I think. And were the deaths and the overdoses that were reversed, were those Clatsop County residents? And can you give the broad age range?
My understanding is that they were all Clatsop County residents, and the two who died were in their late 20s, early 30s. It's tragic.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. I see Commissioner Thompson's hands up. I just want to remind you that we're a little bit over the time for this, but go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Dr. McNichol, is it possible that the Medical Reserve Corps should also have this? Because in case of catastrophic events, it's logical to assume that maybe CERTs and other volunteers should know how to deal with people having substance addiction issues.
I completely agree with you. Absolutely. If they want to make a contact with me, we could definitely make sure we get in contact with them and set up something.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I'm sorry we need to move this along. I appreciate your time, Dr. McNichol.
Thank you.
The next topic, next topic is business ventures operating in the county right-of-ways, and who will give the staff report on that?
This is Ted McLean, Public Works Director.
Okay.
So recently we've been dealing with business ventures working within the county right-of-way, and or operating within the county right-of-ways. Historically, the county right-of-way is used for transportation, access to properties, utilities, drainage, and things such as this that have to do with county roads. We historically have not allowed a business venture in the county right-of-way. But recently, in an effort to be able to manage citizens' concerns, from a compliance perspective, we had to initiate a permit process for anyone that was that had a business within the county right-of-way. And so we're asking the board to give us some direction on how they want to proceed with whether or not to allow this or not, or give us time to put together a policy that would meet what you would like to see. And we give three things to consider. Should a moratorium be placed while staff conducts this work, approximately between September 25th and February 1st? Should these activities continue to be allowed while the staff conducts this work? And should these activities remain status quo and no changes be made to the current process? So over the next few months, that's what we would like to get into, is to evaluate whether or not the county should be leasing, renting, or permitting businesses within the county right-of-way. And if they are permitted, what conditions should be placed on those businesses?
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Ted. So Assistant County Manager Monica Steele, you had put your green microphone on, so did you want to
Only
add to
because
the
I wanted to
conversation?
make sure Ted knew that he was presenting, so
Oh,
he did an awesome
okay.
job.
Okay, did I see some commissioner hands are up already, so let's go to Commissioner Webb.
Yes, I guess this is for our county council. Aren't there, no, what liabilities do we assume when we allow activities in county-owned right-of-ways? That would be, I think, my biggest concern about, I mean, to me, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but a right-of-way is in the public domain. And there's a difference between private property and a public right-of-way. And so to me, I don't think I've ever had experience in a jurisdiction where public rights of way were leased or anything like that. And so this is kind of a new thing for me. And I'm wondering, as I say, what our risks are.
Generally, when we let somebody occupy a right of way, whether for business or for parking or something like that, we generally require folks to indemnify us in case there's a third party claim. So I say the risk as far as lawsuits is pretty low as long as we follow a permitting process that requires that. When I was at the city of Klamath Falls, now keep in mind that's a city, not a county, they did issue permits to occupy the right of way, but they had parameters for that. And I think really what staff is asking for is some clarification and to come back to you all with a plan. So hopefully that answers your question. Thank you.
If I could just add to that, Joanna is absolutely correct. Those are the kinds of questions that we're asking from the commissioners, because we do have a couple of entities that do lease from the county access to the right of way, and we do have lease agreements with them, and they do pay us, and they do carry the necessary insurance that we require to indemnify us. And so those are some of the questions that we are asking. Those are much larger businesses that are operating within the right of way, but those are the sorts of things that we want to be able to go back and find out what the board would like us to require if we're going to allow any businesses to continue doing this.
And also, right away, I see the two commissioners with their hands up, but the right of ways, normally a lot of them are along the road. So they are going by people's homes and through neighborhoods. Is that correct? So if there's a problem, it's affecting citizens along that right of way.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and I saw Commissioner Thompson and Commissioner Quilla both had their hands up. Who would like to go first?
Go ahead, Mark.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So I just think in some cases, and you know, my I guess experience with this is that, on Ridge Road, I got some feedback. Ridge Road is actually becoming a pretty busy. Can you hear me? No.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Alan Berry needs to mute.
Sorry.
Oh. Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. So along the Ridge Road, we've got a lot more traffic nowadays. This is a pretty busy area. We've got Ridge Road leads to KOA, to Fort Stevens, and to Hammond Marina. And we've got some firewood stands that are located along the Ridge Road. Both of them conduct business just facing the road. And so, trucks and vehicles are pulling off the road, doing business and then leaving. There's no hours on these operations. They go, all hours of the day. In some circumstances, they've cleared a lot of the brush away from the county right of way, which I guess I don't know I haven't seen the conditions of the county right of way permit, so I don't know exactly if that's something that's addressed in it, but it seems a little bit odd to me that they're allowed to just trim the buffer that actually buffers the homes from the road away. I know I just drove by firewood stand here tonight, and the truck is out there with the sign out on the county right away. And again, you've got traffic, you've got pedestrian interface here. I just think that there needs to be a real close look at what we're allowing in the county right of way. It just doesn't seem to me in a residential area to be something that's it's in big conflict. I think you've got a big disturbance to a lot of the neighbors because it's been a commercial business operating with chainsaws and equipment, in a lot of hours of the day. So I think it needs to be really examined. I would say a moratorium should be put in place until we've had an opportunity to really review the policy.
Thank you, Commissioner Aquila. Commissioner Thompson, did you want to comment?
Commissioner Nebaker had her hand up as well.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I didn't see that. Sorry. Commissioner Nebaker, who would like to go next? Okay, Commissioner Nebaker.
Thanks. So I'd like to know how long this has been going on, and I understand from Commissioner Aquila that it seems to be getting worse, but has it been identified as a nuisance in general? And my third question is, if these people are making their livelihood from this during the time of COVID, is it possible that we could hold off on stopping them, at least until things are a little bit more normal, or if it would be a danger to let it continue? Those are my questions. Thank you.
Yeah, this has been going on for many, many years. And we prefer that these type of things operate on people's own property, not within the county right of way. We can provide access to their properties. They can have their business on their property, but not within the county right of way. That's from my perspective.
Thank you, Ted. Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Director McLean, you used to have such a quiet department. I think you're doing good things because now we have a lot more public interest in what you're up to. So congratulations on your successes.
I like quiet better.
Thought you might. Well, but here's the deal. I respect what Commissioner Aquila says, that this really represents a hazard. My understanding is that the reason we have a public right-of-way is, well, let me not talk about it. Director McLean, tell us, why do we have a public right-of-way? What function does it serve?
The right-of-way is, as I described, is for transportation. It's for access to properties. It's for utilities. It's for drainage, all those types of uses. And when you allow things in the right-of-way, especially permanent structures, you're hampering your ability to use the right-of-way for those purposes.
Thank you. I wanted to have a clear and concise restatement of those. I understand what Commissioner Nebaker is saying about this is times of COVID and people are scrambling to find ways to provide for themselves and their families. I really respect that. On the other hand, there's a public purpose that is compromised by our allowing this. I think Commissioner Aquila has the right idea when he says we should declare a moratorium and take a look at it, because I think there is risk to the public good from allowing this, and probably some potential harm to individuals. In order to mitigate the harm to the individuals, is there someplace else close by where they could safely operate to sell this firewood? I don't know the area, so perhaps Commissioner Aquila or Director McLean can enlighten me.
Commissioner Aquila?
Well, the gentleman that started the operation that I was referring to actually didn't live nearby. Doesn't live anywhere nearby. He's just set up his firewood stand in this area. So I think that there are a number of places where this person could do business. He chose this location, and now I know that another neighbor has kind of partnered with him, or I don't know how long this partnership has been going, but the person that's operated the stand doesn't live there and doesn't have any connection to the property at all, any adjacent property. So he could go anywhere.
Well, I think also, since this is occurring in a public right of way and affecting neighbors, as we all know, every single one of us are dealing with the stresses of COVID and the fires, and this kind of actions that's going on is stressful to the other neighbors too. Commissioner Aquila?
I would just add that I'm referring to this this situation. The neighbor is actually moving because of this. This is one of the issues of why this neighbor is moving, that had some issues, that was next to this firewood stand. So it's already impacted the neighborhood.
So
If
it's
I
driving
could,
people home.
if I could just also clarify, I don't want to interrupt, but if the board wishes for a moratorium to be put in place, this is going to be a county-wide moratorium. So there's one fire stand that has been mentioned, but this is for all business that doesn't already have a lease within the right-of-way. So this is not just singling out any particular stand. This will be a county-wide moratorium for those that do not have signed lease agreements with the proper insurance and are leasing the space.
Thank you for that clarification. Commissioner Thompson?
Well, do we have a number? Bigger than a bread box, smaller than a house? I mean, how many folks are we talking about?
We know that there are currently, we know that there are other stands throughout the county. There was one not that long ago out in the Napa area, and that one kind of resolved itself. We currently only have 2 business permits other than the lease agreements that we have. But for this type of operation, there's only 2. And so those ones are the ones that are currently compliant with having a permit in place. But if there's complaints that come from other operations occurring within the right of way, then those would also be asked to remove their property from the premises.
Commissioner Aquila?
Well, I think that we've allowed the operations and this activity throughout the summer. I think that has been needed for people that are trying to make money during a crisis, and the COVID crisis. The idea of doing a moratorium in the off months, I think, is actually a wise way to go about it. And I don't think we're impacting that many in doing it.
Is there a way to have a moratorium according to, well, going to say that the ones that are currently the businesses, some of them are not causing problems. Is that correct?
They are encroaching on the right of way.
Okay.
And from an equity perspective, we would want to make sure that we're treating everybody the same.
Okay. Any other comment? Oh, Commissioner Nebaker.
So if we have allowed permitted use in the right of way, isn't that in conflict with wanting to eliminate them? I'm a little confused about that.
So to say that we've allowed it, historically, it hasn't been, you know, from a code compliance perspective, oftentimes what happens is when you get a complaint, that's when you go out. We don't have the manpower to go out and look at every single thing that's happening. And so from a perspective of trying to, these businesses have been taking place, like Commissioner Quila said, for a number of years, and recently it's become a bigger issue. And so the Ridge Road operation is a unique operation because it's a county right-of-way within the city limits. And so from a perspective of them using the county right-of-way, if they're allowed to be in the county right-of-way, but they're violating some sort of city ordinance, then it would be the city who's complying in regards to a noise complaint or something like that. So to try and manage the situation, since they were already operating within the right-of-way, the Public Works Department said, okay, well, we'll put conditions on you being allowed to operate within the right-of-way. And so we did that in an effort to try to alleviate the complaints that were being caused from these operations, to try and control it better. And unfortunately, that hasn't always worked. And so staff is now trying to figure out, do you even want us to allow us to permit it? Typically, we don't permit this type of activity. Like Ted was saying, this is not a historical use. It has happened, but it's not what the right-of-way is intended for. And so what we're trying to do now is, if the board does decide that they want to allow businesses to operate within the right-of-way, then we really need to be more formal and put some systems in place to make sure that it is being enforced properly, and that if somebody violates that, then it's over and done with. Or does the board just not want us to continue to allow this kind of operation to occur? And so that's just kind of the direction that we're looking for to see. But in the meantime, we're trying to figure out, do you want us to put a moratorium on it while we look into this and provide you with some information to make that decision? Do you want to allow operations to continue to exist while we do this work? And in that particular instance, we will be working against ourselves, because we'll continue to have complaints from the community regarding the operations, while at the same time trying to figure out how to address the situation. Or do you just not want to change anything and just allow businesses to continue to operate? So that's the kind of guidance that we're looking for today.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Thompson?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Commissioner Quila that it's good to have a moratorium now, kind of in the off season. I think we have to do things to protect neighborhood livability, and studying this and having a moratorium is a good way to do that. So I'd be in favor of that.
Commissioner Nebaker? Thank you. Commissioner Nebaker?
Have there been complaints about the Lager restaurant? I understand that they have a permit, but that's quite a bit, even though it says it's small, it seems like quite a bit. So would that go away as well, or have there been complaints?
On the Lager restaurant, we've had complaints in the past, mainly because of parking within the county right of way. It is a dead end road, but there's one home there. They have corrected their parking situation, and they have a lease with us for being able to work within the right of way. So that would continue.
So if we were to do a moratorium, the businesses that have a lease, they would continue?
They would continue, and then they have to provide the proper insurance as well.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Webb?
I'm not sure that, and of course, this is a work session, so we can't make a motion, right? We're just
right.
talking about it. I think that with everything else that the Public Works Department has on its plate right now, I'd like to lighten the load a little bit, and just perhaps take whatever action we need to take to say, we have our two existing rights of way, and in the future, we believe that the public right of way is sacrosanct and that there should be no incursions of private use on the right of way, period. Case closed. I don't see, I mean, I don't think we need any kind of a 6-month study or anything else. I mean, obviously these two, the one at the logger and the other one, you know, those are historic. I mean, they've been in use a long time. They've obviously been negotiated over time. Otherwise, the county policy is that there are no private incursions on the right of way, period.
Well, my understanding is that we could clarify the policy that we have, correct? And we can make adjustments, but a moratorium would, I'm getting echoes, so I don't have to call back in or not. But a moratorium would be effective for this particular problem. So I've got to get off and call back in, but we are also near the time of discussing this. It sounds like it's better now. Is it better now? Okay, good. I would support a moratorium. So doggone it, here it goes again. I'm gonna turn this over to Monica while I get out, and maybe we can conclude this portion, then we'll go to the next topic. I don't know what we need to do. Joanna, maybe you can help us.
If I may, I think it's when Commissioner Webb has her mic on that you're echoing. So as long as when you're speaking, Commissioner Webb has her mic off, I think you're good.
Okay. All right. So I know that this is brought to us for some kind of clarity on our part, on the board part, and we are not voting on it. But it sounds to me like there's general understanding that this is a problem, and that so I guess I would need a little more. Is that enough that the majority of the commissioners believe this is a problem and think that we should move forward? Do we ask if they move forward on a moratorium?
I think that we have enough guidance from the board that we can go ahead and put something in place to be able to research this and come back to you all with a recommendation.
Okay, thank you very much, Monica. So let's move on to the third topic. We've got about 16 minutes left, and this is seepage in Clatsop County. This is page 5 of your agenda. I'm a septic. It doesn't look like it's spelled right to me. This is about septic tanks, right? So I've never seen that word spelled that way. So please take it away from me, please.
Can you hear me? This is Mike McNichol again.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So as you see there, the septic issue is about septic tank waste. It has its own special word because it's special. So in a nutshell, the issue is that the wastewater treatment plants in our county, in Seaside, Warrenton, and Astoria, only one of those right now is accepting septic tank pumpage. So, or the pumpings. And so what's happening is that even in certain times, the city of Warrenton's wastewater treatment plant is unable to accept that waste. So those folks who are in the septic tank pumping business, which is Ed Septic, Complete Septic, and Sweet Septic, and a couple others, Terry Septic, they're finding themselves in a position where they pump out of somebody's septic tank, they have to drive to Rainier to actually do the dumping, and it's going to be becoming more and more expensive, especially if Rainier comes to a point where, like most other wastewater treatment plants, where the regulations are getting tougher about discharges, that's going to be an issue for us. So about 1 o'clock today, we had a meeting with several other folks in the county. And I'm going to let Monica discuss that discussion because I could barely hear it when I was on.
So we met with the cities, and we also had the Port of Astoria and then the Clatsop County Public Works Department, because we have the Westport Sewer District on there. So we met today and we just kind of talked about the different issues that we're all facing regarding septic. Some of it was in regards to capacity, some of it was in regards to, and I apologize because this isn't my area of expertise, but the BODs and the suspended solids that are in the tanks and such. And so we initially, this was our first meeting just to kind of discuss where everybody is facing issues. We did talk about some possible solutions. Unfortunately, the city of Gearhart was not on the call. And as you are probably aware, the city of Gearhart is the only municipality where the entire city is on septic. And so that creates a big issue. The city of Seaside did say that they are interested in working with the city of Gearhart to try and find a resolution to their situation as far as some sort of partnership. But again, that's going to require conversations. We also talked about things such as a biodigester. Some of the things that we have to look into for that is where would it go, the jurisdictions who would be potential users, as well as who would take the byproduct of the process and who would pay for it. Melanie Olson from Business Oregon was also on the call, and so she kind of talked about potential grant opportunities. We talked about in regards to a county-wide compliance position, because some of the problems and reasons why the cities have been reluctant to take the septic that is being brought to them is because some of the restaurants and industrial users aren't compliant all the time in regards to using their grease traps properly. And so that creates a lot of problems in regards to the systems that they have in place and what all of that does to those systems. We also talked about a kind of county-wide education on proper use of septic tanks as well as sewer systems. Not that long ago, the city of Astoria sent out a flyer to their users, and we're preparing that flyer, and then it'll be conversations that we can have with the septic haulers as well in regards to it, just educating people on how to properly use and what should be going in a toilet. Oftentimes people who are coming down here, whether they are renters, long-term renters or short-term renters, and they're coming from metropolitan areas and they're not familiar with septic systems, put stuff in there that shouldn't be being put into there, and that also creates problems. So just doing a countywide education on proper septic use, and then also just proper sewer use as well. And then, like I mentioned, just kind of a county or a regionalization or consolidation among jurisdictions, and just trying to work together to try and figure out possible resolutions. One of the things, like I mentioned, is if we had a biodigester, where would it go? Who would be able to, you know, we don't want to put it in a place where then you're going to have potential traffic impacts, because there are going to be haulers coming in there. So those are the sorts of things that we would have to be looking at. But we did have a conversation today. We felt that it was a good start to this conversation. As many of you know, when you're talking about treatment plants or facilities or biodigesters, none of this is inexpensive. This is significant cost when you're talking about infrastructure such as this. But we have started the conversation to try and find a resolution as soon as possible, because we know that it has a significant impact on our countywide.
Thank you, Monica. So, and I see Commissioner Thompson's hand is up, but and I'll get back to you. So what they recommend is that the staff is recommending a working group, and that's, do you need our you know, you just want consensus on our part to do that? Okay, Commissioner Thompson.
Absolutely a working group on this, and absolutely keep us advised. I mean, this is essential to life as we know it in rural Clatsop County. And so everything you're talking about sounds well focused, vitally important. Just keep us updated, because we need to get behind it. But this is another issue why people have a problem with transient occupancy, because what's left behind from visitors has to be dealt with. And so I want to make sure when we're going forward on this that we're looking at the real cost of it, and that it's apportioned properly, and we look at helping people be responsible, not only in their behavior, but financially responsible as well. So thank you for the excellent report and the excellent work. Please keep us updated.
Thank you. And I saw Commissioner Quillen's hand up, and I'll get back to you, Commissioner Webb.
Yeah, I'm really pleased to see that this is moving forward as well. I know I've talked to Jerry Lebo from Complete Septic probably for a year and a half or more. He's regularly turned away from warrants and from dumping. And I think that it's something that they're desperate for some solutions here. So I'm so glad that we're looking at this seriously.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb?
Yeah, I think that I think I've mentioned to a few of you before that in our comp plan work, I am a little sad that we're not taking a closer look at infrastructure issues. And this is an issue. I wish Mike McNichol could give his impassioned speech about septic in on the Clatsop Plains. This is a countywide issue. This is not going anywhere. It's going to get worse as time goes on. We have these small, we have the Westport and we have the Miles Crossing, tiny little at capacity sewage treatment. We've got to deal with this, and I would really encourage the staff to take a long view, in terms of time, and a very broad view in terms of where these issues are important throughout the whole county. And be creative. There are lots of new, very, I think, exciting. Takes a planner to get exciting about, sewage disposal, but there really is some great technology emerging to deal with this issue. And so it's something we ought to have in our sights, and we ought to be planning for investing in the future. Go for it.
Thank you.
Go.
Thank you, Commissioner Webb. But I will say that I have been at comprehensive plan update meetings where we have discussed sewage. So, I mean, I think that is on the radar. Do we need to talk about it more? Absolutely. Commissioner Nebaker?
Thank you. I would like to hear who should be attending these future meetings from Gearhart. Perhaps I could talk to someone and ask them to be sure and attend. Seems like it should be a partnership. And Gearhart, as my understanding, is the largest municipality in the state that is still on septic. So they're having a big impact, I would say. And they would have a lot to lose as far as the cost of transport. But years ago, I went to the, I believe it was the Merch Center, and they were doing experiments with sewage, and it was extremely successful. They were, I mean, it was very small, but they were showing what these plants could do. And I know Cannon Beach has this type of a system that works very well.
We are going to be reaching out to we have reached out to Chad. Initially, this went to all the city managers, and we asked them to forward it on to those staff that should be included. And so, in many instances, that's the public works facility. And so we'll be reaching out to them again. Seaside also does have a system in place, and so what they do with a lot of their byproduct is they have hay fields that it then gets deposited out into. It's a dry fertilizer that goes out there, and the crop owners have seen significant increases in the crop growth based on that fertilizer. So Seaside is doing things with it, and there are other areas like Clean Water Services up in Hillsborough So there are options that this can be used for. Tillamook has several of these biodigesters, and they are doing this with the cow manure, and they are using it to help create power. So those are all things that were discussed today, and we'll be working with the jurisdictions as well as Business Oregon to try and explore some of those other options.
Thank you. I think it is exciting what's going forward. We have, and I know that when I managed a building downtown Portland, education does help. They came around to talk. We had about 80 units in our building. Just talking about disposal of grease and the ways you can dispose of grease without sending it down the drain. And I just think it's a growth industry with this. All different levels of how they're going to fix this problem. Today's problems are tomorrow's jobs. So I would say let's go forward with this task force. Commissioner Nebaker, did you want to have something quick to say, and then we're going to take a bio break before the 6 o'clock meeting?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I agree that education is very important. I've talked to several people who bought new houses in Gearhart that had garbage disposals. And they had no understanding that you shouldn't use a garbage disposal when you're on a septic. So people are still building houses and, you know, putting in those appliances. And yeah, education is important.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Monica. So it is 5:57. We will be back here at 6. You want to just turn off your camera and mic, we'll be back at 6. This meeting is adjourned.